What up guys, it is Royalty Crypto here and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about some upcoming bullish catalysts for the crypto market and just give like an overall market update on where I expect these coins to be in the next, month or two. We had a bit of a bloodbath in the crypto market yesterday, and that does cause a lot of panic in the crypto space. I could tell just from some of the comments that I've been getting in the past couple of days. So without further ado, I did want to get into this list first. So this is a list of the altcoins with pending ETF approvals. So if you don't know what an ETF is, it's basically a way that you would be able to buy and sell these assets on the stock market. And every time you buy an asset, the company that you're purchasing it from has to purchase it and hold it for themselves. So say you buy, $1,000 worth of Solana, they have to then go and purchase 5 SOL and hold it in a treasury. So it is very bullish for the long term of these prices because it's just yet another way that people can purchase them. And especially, people with massive stock portfolios, they don't always want to transfer money off of those accounts. So now they actually have a potential to get some meme coin and altcoin exposure. So it's very beneficial for them. But yeah, when you take a look at this list, there is so many fantastic projects on it and so many projects that I would never have expected to have an ETF approval. But when you take a look, we actually did get a couple Solana ETFs approved this week, and so far they are going very well, so that's awesome to see. But we also have SUI, XRP, BNB, Bonk, Cardano, Chainlink, HBAR. HBAR also had one approved this week, I believe. I'm not exactly sure how it's doing. I'll have to take a look at that. Trump Coin, DOT, Pengu, and Say. It's just insane that we have not only medium cap altcoins, but also meme coins getting potential ETF approvals. That is just crazy to think, guys. Back when the Bitcoin ETF first went live early last year, I remember I was making jokes like, we're gonna get a Pepe and Doge ETF soon. And it's insane. I never thought that was actually gonna happen, but we actually do have a legitimate chance for that. So I do think that having ETF approvals is very bullish for the medium term, without a doubt, for all of these coins. I do question how well a Pengu or Say ETF will do, just because they're kind of niche, and not just those two in particular, but coins like that, just because they're kind of a niche crypto project. I'm not sure how much Wall Street even really knows about those coins at this given moment. People with stock portfolios, they're probably not as focused on crypto. They've probably never heard of those coins, but that doesn't mean that, down the line, say an altcoin season just really starts to take off, they could start to get some crazy attention, and we could start to see Wall Street FOMO into basically any of these coins. So yeah, this is fantastic to see, and a very bullish catalyst in my opinion. All right, let's take a look at the overall crypto market. I like to take a look at just some indicators as well as some top coin prices. So as you can see here, we are actually having a decent recovery day today. Bitcoin sitting at about 110,000. Ethereum is pushing back up to the $3,850 range. I believe both of these ranges are actually very important that we can hold or push above them. The 3,850 range for Ethereum was the local all-time high for the past 3 years before we finally broke it a couple months ago. And 110,000, same thing with Bitcoin actually. That was the all-time high that we were sitting at before our most recent all-time high push to 125,000. So if we can break above these prices and kind of create a support zone at them, that would be fantastic to see. Also, Solana is holding up incredibly well. We're still basically around the $200 range, so it hasn't even taken that big of a hit. I am very bullish on Solana, guys. I know I've talked about it in some of my other videos. I think it is legitimately possible that Solana could see above a $500 per coin before the end of the year. Now, of course, we would need to have the sentiment flip to where we are at least, close to extreme greed for that to happen. But nonetheless, I do think that is a very possible scenario. And as you see here, we are sitting at a 31 out of 100 on the Fear and Greed Index. So basically what that means, guys, is that it is a good time to be buying these altcoins and basically any coin really. The reason that I say that is because you always need to be buying when we are in fear. And when I say that you should be buying, I'm not saying you should go ahead and go all in, just put every dime that you have to your name. I don't think you should do that. Whenever people do something like that, it makes them just so emotional. And when you're trading, high risk assets like crypto, you cannot be trading emotionally, or else you will lose 100 times out of 100. But I do think it is a good time to start buying again, slowly but surely. That way, if we do happen to go down, you just keep buying, it's not that big of a deal. How I look at it, for example, is I don't think we're going into a bear market because of all of these incredibly bullish catalysts coming up. But say we were going into a bear market, I don't really care that much because I'm going to be buying all the way down, like quite literally. I will buy, say we're dipping for 8 months, I'm going to be buying every single week, no matter what. And I think that's the right way to look at it. All right, so let's take a look at the next bullish catalyst, in my opinion. Hopefully bullish, at least. Because as you can see here, we have a 63% chance of another rate cut in December. The market is definitely very worried about this after Jerome Powell said that it's not a foregone conclusion that we will be getting a rate cut. I am not reading too much into this. If you guys were paying attention in the past 2 FOMC meetings, Jerome kind of said similar things. He said that there's a good chance they won't cut, or he's not sure if they will. And directly after the meeting, kind of like what we're experiencing right now, the odds were much lower that, we would actually get a rate cut in the next meeting. But as you guys know, we have had 2 back-to-back rate cuts. So, sometimes you just can't worry too much about what he says in these. And I do expect that when we get closer to this meeting, that this percentage will go up, hopefully into at least the 90% range. And I do think that we will get a cut. All right, let's take a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map. So the price drop that we saw yesterday was largely caused from fear, of course. That's at least what initiated it. But that fear did initiate a bit of a long squeeze. So what that means is we started to liquidate all of these long leverage traders. And there was quite a bit of them because, yet again, people started to get way too bullish and started to bet way too much money on leverage, and it's caused a long squeeze. But, it is actually somewhat of a bullish thing if you think about it, because now this drop is giving the shorts and the bears just so much confidence that we are going into a bear market. And the more confidence that they get that we're going into a bear market, the more money they are going to be betting on the price going down. And as you can see, we are starting to accumulate a lot of short traders right above this price. So it's hard to say what the market makers will do in the short term. It really does kind of depend on some, China trade deal situation, whatnot. Just the headline news stories, really. But there is definitely a possibility that the market makers and exchanges could start to target these short traders up here, and there's a lot of them. And if they were to do that, then we could quite literally see a short squeeze all the way up to $120,000 in a matter of days, or even less, depending on the headlines. I think that we are actually in a good spot here. However, you do notice that there is still quite a bit of long leverage below us as well. So there is a bearish scenario where we could drop down to 103 to 102,000 on Bitcoin. That is definitely not out of the realm of possibilities. But I'm going to go ahead and say that I am actually leaning towards the more bullish side of things. All right, now the last thing that I wanted to do, because we already talked about Bitcoin and Ethereum, is just take a look at the S&P 500. So as you can see here, the last 2 days on the S&P 500 have not been the best. However, I don't think that really matters when you zoom out. I mean, look at this upwards trend that we've seen this year. Yeah, guys, take a look at that. That's the run that we've gone on since April. These were the tariff lows over here, and the S&P 500 is just continuing to rip higher. Now, the reason that I'm looking at this, because I'm sure that most of you probably, maybe some of you do invest in the S&P 500, but I know a lot of crypto degens were 100% all in on crypto. But nonetheless, guys, this is good to see, because when an asset class like the S&P 500 is performing incredibly well, these people will eventually start to take some profits. And, there's something that's called a winner's curse in finance. And it's when you have a very successful investment, like these people, say, invested in the S&P 500 3 years ago, and now they're up basically double on their money in the safest asset class. A lot of them might start to think that they're geniuses, oh my God, I'm him or her. I'm the best at this investing thing, and I'm going to take this straight to Bitcoin because Bitcoin is going to go to 250,000. And that ultimately pushes up the price of Bitcoin to, whatever it will end up at. And then those people will start to take profits and then move into more and more risky things. And that's how we eventually get an altcoin season. So yeah, guys, I mean, it's fantastic to see the S&P 500 performing well, and I do hope that will translate over to the crypto market. But all right, guys, that's going to do it. I hope you have a great Friday and a fantastic weekend. And happy Halloween. I completely forgot it was Halloween until just now. Hopefully these crypto assets aren't the scariest part of the day. But all right, guys, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good day.